Hey everybody, John Collins, real estate agent in San Diego, joined today by Rosario, Burgos Santoyo, and Gretel Smith of Burgos Santoyo Smith. They are family lawyers, and we are going to be talking about real estate and divorce today, which is, of course, a very sad situation, but one in which it makes a lot of sense that they kind of go together. Thanks so much, guys, for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting us. Oh, thank you for having us.
I'm excited to talk to you guys today because I know you're going to bring a lot of great information for people who may be dealing with a stressful situation and wondering how this all goes together. Obviously, a home is usually a family's base asset, and if you buy it with somebody who are no longer going to share it with, it's going to raise a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yes. So as you mentioned, it's usually the biggest asset, and it's also the one that people are emotionally tied to, aside from children, of course. A lot of people want that stability of not having to move and start over in a new home. So it's often very contentious, which creates a more colorful environment for you as the person who's assisting them with selling a home.
Very much. And as a certified divorce specialist real estate agent, I have been through training and down that road where I've had to deal with that and learn about that. And kids in particular, as a parent, it really is a touchstone for the kids. And when you're having to perhaps show a house that is their safe space in that situation, it can be tough. But so in preparing for this interview, I went ahead and I looked up what are people searching for when it comes to divorce and real estate, because we all know whether you're searching for a house or you're learning to do anything, you go to Google first and you start putting together your next steps. So these are the questions that people ask most on Google, and we're going to get it from the experts what you should be doing. So the first couple of questions that come up the most seem to be around the timing. And one thing people wonder is, can the house be sold before the divorce is finalized?
The answer is sometimes. So if there is an agreement between both parties to sell the house, then yes, you can sell the house prior to the divorce being finalized. A lot of times that's a good idea because the proceeds of the house can help fund the divorce if there's anything litigious going on aside from the sale of the property. However, if there isn't an agreement, then you would probably have to wait for a court to decide what to do with this home and wait for that court order. But even then, the divorce doesn't necessarily have to be finalized prior to selling the home. So lots of ifs, answer, buts.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And of course, divorce can be expensive. And that's a great thought. Having those proceeds could help alleviate that for parties that may be struggling otherwise.
Yes.
So again, related to timing, this is a little bit more subjective. And I know as with a lot of these questions in both real estate and in law, the question is maybe sort of or sometimes, right? But a question that came up a lot is it better to sell before or after the divorce?
Well, I'm going to give you the attorney answer, which is it depends.
Yeah.
It depends a lot. It depends on the situation. If you are in a situation where both parties need the money to either fund the divorce or one party needs money to move out and move on with their life, then maybe selling it during the divorce or before the divorce is finalized might work for them, right? So one of the reasons why maybe you would want to wait until after the divorce would be, perhaps you have children in school, you don't want to disrupt their school schedule. So you wait until the divorce is finalized, and then you and your former spouse decide to list the house after the school year ends. So it's less of a transition for your children, right? Less of a traumatic transition for your children, right? And
yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So it really just, when I say it depends, it's on the factual circumstances of each person, right? It's not going to be a cut and dry, this is that. It's what works for your family.
Of course. Yeah. No, I think our worlds are alike in that way, in that every scenario is a little different and their personalities are different and the need of that particular group might be, specific. So it's probably not surprising to say that when people are getting divorced, they're disagreeing on things. When they disagree about whether to sell the house, that's a big one. How do you guys deal with that?
So there are a lot of tools that you can use in order to try to sort of force that person's hand, whoever is in disagreement. For example, in the court order to sell the home, be specific as to the sale price, and the accepting price, say within 3% of the asking price. be specific as to the times that the home will be available to show, where the for sale sign will be, things like that. And if somebody refuses to follow the court order, we had cases where contempt might be in order. So you can file a contempt against this person. Then you can even file for an elizer, which is when you have a third party actually sign the sales contract for that person. There are things that you could do in preparation for somebody refusing to sell the home that would give you a legal basis to sort of force their hand or even have someone else's hand.
That makes sense. And it actually kind of takes us back to the questions of timing that we were talking about before, right? I imagine if people are in agreement, the timing, it gets pushed out because now you have to have a mandate that they are required to follow, as opposed to people cooperating, maybe selling earlier in the process.
Right.
Now, as a real estate agent, of course, I love helping people sell houses, but my advice to a lot of people when they look at buying that next house is keep the first one if you can. Now, in divorce, that can become more challenging, of course, but in scenarios where maybe they don't want to sell the house, they want to keep it as a shared asset, can they do that? And how does that work?
So you can keep a shared asset. I don't recommend it usually to clients because when you're getting divorced, you want a clean break. Right? You don't want to be commingling your finances with this person that you're no longer married to. You can have one partner buy the other partner out. And so sometimes a party will refinance the home. So they want to keep the house. They'll refinance. We get the house appraised and then buy the other side out. And so that's a possibility. If sometimes parent families don't want to sell because the timing's not right, and they recognize that maybe the market's just not a good time to sell the house, or the kids are about to graduate. They're going to graduate from high school in 2 years and they don't want to disrupt that routine. So sometimes there can be court orders where the parties agree to stay in the house. One party lives in the house with the children. The other party has a different place, but they both keep their name on the property with a time to sell it. You can do that as well. But you want to have an end date to that. You don't want to keep the house indefinitely in both of your names. What will end up happening is litigation down the line, because somebody inevitably is going to want to sell. You're going to want to buy something else, right? Because unless they're both renting that property out, someone's living in it and the other person's out. They're going to want to buy a new house. They're going to want to do something down the line. So if you do want to keep it temporarily because the kids are there and one party is going to stay there until the children are at school, set a deadline to have that listing and make sure that's clear in your order or your judgment that says that by this date, either one party is going to buy the other party out or the house will be listed for sale.
So when it is mandated the house needs to be sold during a divorce, even when people are all on the same page and working together, a house might sit on the market. It might not sell. The listing may expire. Now, typically that's due to a misalignment of price and condition and or location. But in a divorce situation, I can only imagine it gets more complicated, especially if somebody is intentionally working against the sale. So the question that came up a lot in the Google searches is, what if a house does not sell during a divorce? What happens? How does that get unstuck?
So I think that's where you have to really lean on your professionals, including your realtor. Make sure that it's somebody that knows the market, how to price it strategically, and make sure that all of those things are in order. If everything looks like it is in order, then look to see if there's anyone sabotaging your sale. A lot of times I've had someone hide the for sale sign and do things like that. So make sure that both people are following the court order and that everything that you have to do in order to encourage the sale of the house, such as have it available for showings and have the sign out and have it priced right. Make sure that all those boxes are checked, because something has to be amiss, and just find what it is that's causing it not to sell. But eventually a house has to sell.
Mm-hmm. And if somebody is working against it, say will not agree to a reasonable sales price, is intentionally keeping it inflated to prevent the sale, is that something then a judge would step in and affect?
Yes, we could go in for a contempt and say that they are not following the court order and selling the house. by doing something in order to prevent the sale of the house, such as inflating the asking price.
I see. And that would come back to us, the professionals, advising the attorneys and the judges to what those reasonable things are and how it's not being followed.
Yes, exactly. And make sure that any future order would include, the reasonable asking price has to be set by the realtor as opposed to the parties having to agree to it, or things like that would limit the opportunity for someone to sabotage the sale of the home.
All right. As we wrap things up, I wanted to kind of take it back to a timing question, end up where we started. If somebody is in the investigative stage, maybe watching this video, wondering what they should do if they're contemplating a divorce, when should they talk to a lawyer? When should they talk to a real estate agent? And should they do those things before or after they maybe tell the spouse that they want that divorce?
I think they should talk to the lawyers when they start contemplating, because that way then we can put together a plan for them, right? It doesn't have to be a litigious plan. It just can be a plan where you start, right? What are the assets you have? So that way you have a better understanding of how things will be divided, because they will be divided, right? You'll have a better idea of the timeline that you're working with, and we'll be able to have a strategy going in and hopefully not have a litigious divorce because of that. And then, obviously, once they come up with a plan, talking to real estate agents, I think, is a good idea. You don't want to engage a real estate agent until you have an agreement to sell, though, because once you file for divorce and you try to sell a house that's a community asset, you're in some big trouble for that. So don't do that.
Right. Go. And from my seat, typically when I sit down, the owners are on board together, but it is something that I'm always making sure that we have all the stakeholders on board and signing and moving in the same direction. If one side approaches me, yes, I would absolutely be sending them back your way.
Right.
Because it may be that this has to be coming from the judge or somebody who's going to mandate it if it's not something that they're going to be able to get on board with together.
Correct.
Obviously, I think we could sit here and talk through these scenarios and different questions for a long time, and hopefully we can keep the people out there a lot of good information to start with. But there are going to be more questions, and their conversations are probably first going to be with people like you. If they wanted to reach out to you to have those additional conversations, how did they do that?
Our phone number is 833-931-1615. And so during business hours, somebody would answer that call, or you can leave a voicemail and someone will return your call on the next business day. Great.
And I know you guys are active on social media, have a podcast as well. So is a website or anything else you wanted to
You can check out our website, which is bsslegal.com. And on there, you have links to our podcast. You have links to articles about divorce, and also a way to contact us via email.
Great. Thank you. Really appreciate you guys joining today. And my information will be in the comments as well. So if you want to reach out to me for any real estate questions, I look forward to talking to you then.